the Joker becomes a hero. Will that make the Dark Knight a villain? Batman White Knight.
Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here once again, and welcome to another edition of the Batman I Believe in, the Bat-centric channel where we talk about anything and everything as long as it pertains to the Caped Crusader. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Mcfarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman White Knight figure. Yeah.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
Right on, guys. So in terms of the accessories, what we've got going here is, of course, we have the collector's card. This one having some artwork from Sean Gordon Murphy's Batman White Knight book. It's one of the covers. I believe it's like the alternate variant cover for the first or second issue. Then we've got the stand that always comes with these guys. We've got a Batarang attached to a line. It's got some, decent enough sculpting gone into it. Then we have the Batman the Animated Series style grapple gun. Very cool. It's got some nice little paint detail there on the buttons. And then we have this. The same line, just unfurled and not able to connect to the grapple gun. So, not really sure what the function or purpose of that is, but cool. Right on, guys, so in terms of the aesthetics on this figure, I am overall pretty happy about it. There's a very strong resemblance to the way the character appears in the comic books. The sculpting on it overall is very, very nice. I really appreciate the extra texture put into the bat symbol on the chest, and the cape is just beautifully sculpted. The other little bits of like very personalized affectations to this particular design of Batman are also very good. On the boots, I really enjoy the kind of separation of the armored panel, whereas in the comic book sometimes it just looks like he's wearing a very high, kind of thigh-high boot. Here you can really definitely see the functionality that that is supposed to provide. The only real drawbacks I would say to the aesthetics on this particular figure are, number one, the ears on the cowl. They're, for some reason, very chopped off and not very pointy, which is not the way that the character is generally depicted when drawn by Sean Gordon Murphy. And the other issue that I have is the neck. For some reason, they left the neck on the cowl area gray. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'm misremembering it. Maybe that is how it appears in the comic, because the image on the provided collector's card that comes with the action figure did not show this particular part of the costume. So I grabbed my copy down from the shelf and I flipped through the first one, and I was like, well, okay, well, let's check out in the sequel book where Azrael shows up, which I unfortunately haven't finished reading. But as I started looking through, yeah, sure enough, I found an image of him without the cape on. Like, the cowl goes all the way down to his collarbone as per usual. So that's a pretty big miss, and it really does not look all that great. It kind of, I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of that particular aesthetic here. And the only other little drawback I would say, again, on this, is that the ball joints in the wrists are very, very noticeable, mostly because they're made of a different kind of plastic. They definitely break up the sculpt a little bit, but that's really my only complaints in terms of the aesthetics of this figure. The sculpt is nice, the paint is nice, I'm very happy with the actual facial features of the figure. They really managed to capture the feel and the spirit and the tone of the Sean Gordon Murphy Batman. Alright, now we're going to take a look at the articulation on this guy, starting from the top and moving down. So for the head on this guy, we can get it to look up just about that much, showing off that really ugly gray neck. It can look down about this much right here, and then it can go side to side about that much, and before it gets stopped by that collar right there, and about the same the other way. And then you do get a little bit of swivel in there as well, but that's about all you're going to be getting out of that particular head. Moving on down to the arms, you're going to be able to get them to go up about that far with the cape in place as it is. However, you can actually take the corners of this cape on the shoulders there and fold them over, and you'll get a little bit more range of motion out of these arms. So let's go ahead and get that done like that. So yeah, you can get them to go up about that far, and when the cape is up like this, you can get them to go mostly all the way around like that. Whenever the cape is down, however, you're only going to have about this much in terms of your range of movement right there, guys. So yeah, but it does give you a few little options there. In terms of the arms themselves, we can get this pulled back up. They do have a biset cut, like so. They also have a butterfly joint. You know, however, with the width of the chest and kind of that cape there, you're not going to get a whole lot out of them, but it does give you a little bit to work with. Moving on down to the elbows, we have a single jointed elbow, which goes up about 90 degrees, maybe a little bit under there, yeah. And of course, it's got that weird gearing texture on the bottom of it right there that I'm not really a big fan of, but you know, that's not really the articulation, so we'll move on. Then we go on to the wrist, and as always, they got the ball joint wrist where we can get out of it, let's see here, it can go up that much, down that much, and then of course spin all the way around, and that is the same on both arms. Then moving on down, we have the midsection. So on this guy here, we have a pretty good tornado function going there. In terms of the bend back, we can get him to go, you know, not really all that far back. And oh wow, almost nothing in terms of being forward there. You know, a little bit of that movement you're seeing there is actually the legs and the hips moving, but that's not actually an ab crunch. So almost nothing. You know, it's a little bit, you know, you can get him into some stuff, but it's not great. It's not great at all. Alright, so moving on down in the hips, we have hinges able to take it out. Not quite all the way. It's a little disappointing that the big bad, like, armored bat suit, the Hellbat suit, can actually do better splits than this guy, but okay. You know, it's mostly because of the rubber diaper and utility belt that look fabulous, but again, because of the oversized nature of some of those aspects and the fact that the belt is not floating, you don't really get the full range of motion that these hinges are capable of. You get a little bit of side-to-side swivel, but it's very, very limited. They can go this far forward, you know, not a great range of motion. And in terms of backward, they can actually, you know, doing okay right there. Then moving on down, we have double jointed knees on these guys, which have a really good range of motion and look pretty good as well. Can go all the way back there, almost far enough to kick himself in the butt, you know, just about. So that's real nice. And then on the ankles, we have the ball joint on the ankle, which of course gives us an all the way around. And then it also gives us a pivot up about that much, and a pivot down just about that much. So yeah, and then we also have our, you know, the signature Mcfarlane Toys toe hinge that very rarely is useful for anything. So all in all, guys, like, the articulation on this figure is not the best I've seen by far, but it is, you know, it's decent, and it's definitely better than what I've seen on some of the other Mcfarlane Multiverse figures.
DC's iconic characters. All-star writers and artists. Intense, provocative, daring. Batman, White Knight.
Right on, children of the screen, there you have it. The Mcfarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman White Knight action figure. So, it's got a lot of pros, it's got a lot of cons, but let's go ahead and run through each section again with the grading system. So, in terms of the overall presentation, the accessories, all that kind of stuff, as I said before, we really only get 3 accessories with this, not including the collector's card and the stand, and while one of them is a really cool little piece that actually fits in his hands for once, the other 2 pieces that come with it are kind of useless. One hangs off his belt okay, but like, you can't even connect the like bat line into the grapple gun, so it's kind of useless. I don't even know what it's there for. Should have just given us a Batarang in general. I don't know. For that one, it's going to be getting a sad Batman. As for the aesthetics on this particular figure, as I said, it's kind of a mixed bag. There are little things that are just problems in themselves, like the neck, and again, the ears, they're just a little bit cut off for some reason. Overall, the aesthetics are really good, but in a lot of places, the aesthetics look so good because they sacrificed articulation for the aesthetic. So maybe I shouldn't hold that against this figure, but having said that, everything that I like about the aesthetics goes into making the articulation worse. So because of that, I'm going to give this one a half and half. It's going to be getting one happy Batman and one sad Batman. So that brings us to the articulation. So again, as I've said before about these figures, the articulation on this figure is not the worst I've seen on a figure before. Absolutely not. It is serviceable to a certain extent. However, there are aspects of this figure that, again, these are only $20 figures, $25 depending on where you're buying them, but still little things just like, you know, the arms, being able to bend more than 90 degrees would be nice. Again, I know he's got these big muscly arms, but we see tons of other toy companies that manage to give us these bulky arms and still get, you know, a little bit more bend out of them. I really appreciate the collar on this piece, but at the same time, like, the fact of how it limits the head mobility is kind of an issue for me. And while I love how they kept pretty well to the design, except for a couple of little details, again, making this belt a piece that is solid with the kind of underoos, or like the crotch section, means that you lose a lot of articulation in these hips. Like, it's just too tight for you to be able to get like really cool jump kicking poses. This is about as good as you can get. So unfortunately for this guy, when it comes to the articulation, while I said it's not horrible, it is also going to be getting a shad Batman. So having said that, my final thoughts, my final verdict on this figure. Now, if you look at the score so far, we've got 3 sad Batmans and 1 happy Batman. But I'm gonna level with you guys here real quick. I only got this figure because I knew it was gonna look cool. I already knew going in, based on my experience with the other Multiverse figures, I knew the articulation would be limited like it was. I knew that the accessories were going to be pretty lacking. But I also knew that this guy would look really dope on my shelf, and it's a character that's relatively new, and that's why I got it. So if I'm being honest, even though we have more sad Batmans in the lineup than we have happy Batmans, for me personally, this figure achieves what I wanted it to. It can do very basic poses and look really cool on the shelf as like a fun, unique Batman design, and that's really all I wanted. So for me, this figure, despite all its shortcomings, is going to be getting a happy Batman. Because I am very happy to have it in my collection. Again, I think there are things that are definitely lacking on it, and I definitely think there are a lot of elements here that exemplify my least favorite things about the Mcfarlane DC Multiverse line. But, like I said, it hits all the boxes for the most part. Yes, I'm going to have to do a little customizing on the neck, things of that nature, but other than that, like, I'm pretty happy with it. Right on, guys. But those are just my thoughts on it. Have you guys picked up this figure yet? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of it, or if you haven't picked it up, if it's something you're planning to pick up. I'd like to know. Also, if you like this video, please leave a like and share it with some friends. If you're not subscribed, then make sure and hit that subscribe button so you can check out all the bat-tastic content we have coming out in the future. New videos coming out every Monday at midnight. And thank you guys very much again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Nerd scum.